Welcome to this week's edition of the DC Life Uncensored. I'm your host, Sal Mika. I got my co-host, Micah Frankel. And what a weekend it was yet again for UFC. UFC on Fox. We suck at our picks.
Yeah, we were pretty bad on a few of those. I am not proud of myself for that.
Hey, I got one right. Nate Diaz. How exciting would that be for Nate Diaz to fight Conor McGregor? I agree with everything that guy said. And if you didn't see the fight at the post-fight interview, all it was Joe Rogan asked him how he felt about the fight, and then they bleeped out everything. It you hit the mute button on the remote, and it's funny because you just see his facial expressions as he's going through it. You know exactly what he's saying. And I put it on my Facebook page. I said, I agree with everything Nate Diaz just said in the post-fight interview. And everybody laughs at it because it's so comical because you didn't hear anything he said during his post-fight interview. But the message was relayed to everybody. He wants Conor. What kind of trash talk would that lead up to that event?
Epic. They got, McGregor, you want to say that his mouth is up there with the Ollie's of the sport and the Suttons, and Diaz is just an F-bomb machine. He's going to bring it. That would be an intense lead-up. And I think the biggest words that Diaz uttered in the night were uttered long after everyone was gone. Long into the press conference, I believe, when he said, oh yeah, Joe Silva already told me I get the fight.
Yeah.
So those are some pretty big words that Joe Silva's going to have to bounce back out of, and you're going to have that mainstream people salivating. Who cares it's not a title fight? Put that as the main event right away just for the lead-up. Just let's make them go around the world together, the Diaz brothers and McGregor.
I think that would be awesome. However, you better have security on one side and the other side because Diaz is not afraid. Look, CBS years ago had this MMA event. And what was it called at the time? It wasn't Strikeforce,
It wasn't Strike. It was like Elite FC, Elite XC or something.
That was the death knell. And his brother, Nate Diaz.
The scrap pack against Jason Miller.
Yeah, they threw down live on TV. There was no delay, no nothing. I mean, they basically went and jumped this guy in the middle of the cage. That's what I'm saying. They have no filter when it comes to talking and fighting. They really just don't care. So that's why I say you got to have that security around both of them, separate them. You can't have Conor doing the whole Jose Aldo touching him, going behind him, because let me tell you, Big Brother will be right there fighting with him, and Little Brother will back himself up by himself. But I'm just saying, they will jump McGregor.
For me, the most interesting point of having them around each other would be, does Diaz act like that big of a prick the entire time? Because he said numerous times, you only have the cameras on me when I'm about to fight. You only have the cameras on me when this guy is trying to take food off my plate. Well, technically, when you're out doing a promotional tour right there, you're trying to fill the plate with food.
I think he's going to act that way.
He would go wild.
I think all it takes is McGregor saying something, anything, because he's so wild in his talk with the fighters and other fighters that if he does say anything, it's just going to light the fuse and the bomb's about to go off. And I think it would be a big build-up. Some people say, oh, it'll be a big build-up, but then it'll be a boring fight. I don't see where it's going to be a boring fight.
It can't be a boring fight. These guys have the two best chins in their weight classes, I would say, and we know that Diaz doesn't know how to take a step back. McGregor stalks. It's going to be a calm, composed fight until they get in about distance, and Diaz is going to be throwing everything he can, and McGregor's going to be ducking, dodging, and trying to throw back.
Let's jump into the UFC on Fox card that just happened. I know we're talking about Conor versus Nate, but let's jump in right there at that fight. Nate Diaz returns to the cage. What was your thoughts on that fight?
He threw some leg kicks. He checked some leg kicks. Holy evolution. Wasn't he the tough winner of 2007 season?
Yeah, I want to say it's
it took him 8 years to figure out the full needs to check leg kicks. It more took him a Dos Anjos, a Josh Thompson, I think Tony Ferguson. It took him getting played out by a lot of people to realize he needs to check those. And also, I think his guillotine even looked better because the only couple times that Johnson even threatened, he tried to get in there. I think I remember you possibly saying that Johnson would try to wet blanket a win if he would get one. And I was surprised to see him not attempt that. And there's something to say about the Black Zillions that some of these guys out there, they get thinking with Henry Hoof that they're just these pure K1 glory-style kickboxers. Michael Johnson, I got the fastest hands in the division, but you have the worst head movement of the division of that upper echelon. Diaz threw jab, cross, jab, cross. You could time it. And Johnson had no head movement, no answer for it. It was the evolution and the best Diaz that we had seen.
And they could have the best kickboxing in the game. I mean, we saw it when Nate fought Cowboy. He has way better kickboxing, but the boxing, that boxing style, the length, that jab just consistently sticking in your face, it throws him off. It throws a lot of his opponents off. Majority of his opponents really off that are kickboxers. It really does. And if Michael Johnson thought that he was a kickboxer all of a sudden, well, guess what? It's going to throw your game off. You can't set. He just consistently keeps that jab just pumping right in your face. And then that 1-2, boom, every single time.
I wish I would have been there live to see it, because one of the best aspects of Nate Diaz's game, I think, was his foot movement that night. But the shot that we had on Fox was so tight in, you saw their upper bodies. But what I noticed was Johnson came up short on his left hand, his power shot, just by inches so many times. And I think that was the head movement and the footwork of Diaz and that boxing. He took it to another level. And I was also disappointed with, for the second round and half of the third round, Johnson just forgot anything about throwing leg kicks.
Yeah.
They were effective when he did throw them in the first round, and in the latter half of the third, could have been a different fight if he would have stayed on it, but that jab hurt him too much to have real cognitive function, I think.
And I think his corner, it was telling his corner was just survive, just hang in there. It wasn't the exact quote that they were saying, but they were saying something similar to that.
Show your heart, hang in there. There wasn't technical advice
like,
coming
really?
out of there.
That's what you're going to tell him? Well, why isn't there an uproar saying, oh, your corner sucks? You know, just like Ronda's corner. You know, we go back a couple months, and everybody was like, oh, my gosh, can't believe he gave him that kind of advice. Well, you know, corner, in the moment, everybody makes mistakes. Obviously, last night, the Miss Pageant, whatever, and Steve Harvey messed up. I see it all over Facebook saying that he crowned the wrong Miss Universe or Miss America, whatever.
Oh, did you actually see that?
No. No, but I'm just saying mistakes happen in the moment, and everybody's so quick to jump and say, oh, well, this guy should be fired, or that coach should be fired for this, and he's not giving this good advice. It was shocking to hear him say that instead of coaching his guy through.
It was pretty shocking to hear that, and the only way I could say the difference between, and I forgot his name, the Black Zillions coach, and Edmund Taverdian with Ronda Rousey's, is that we see people consistently flood to the Black Zillions and talk about their improvements, and that they have this huge team, and the team in Glendale kind of seems to shrink every so often.
Shrink and then expand.
Shrink and expand. So the Black Zillions have continued, so I think that's the reason that they escaped with a lot of stuff. Even when they had, a bad, tough performance, the team is so big, there's so many prospects, so many coaches, it's hard to take a shot at all the money that they have backing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only flaw that I saw with Nate, really, was when he'd bend over at the waist to slip punches. I'm like, buddy, you are not covering your face. You are bending over. If that guy had any sense, he would time you and either throw a knee or a kick.
And Connor is really good at those flicking kicks if we talk about that next fight.
Or hook. An uppercut. Right as he's bent over, you're like in a prime spot. And if you go back and watch that, he did that multiple times where any good corner would have caught that. And I thought for sure they were going to tell him, hey, look, he's bending over at a certain point every time to slip your punches, and he's staying there for just that split second, just enough time to either catch him with the uppercut, a kick, a knee, but that all could have happened, and it could have ended badly for him. I've never seen him really that hurt as far back as I can remember, but that would be the only flaw that I saw, but not a bad performance for taking off such a long break.
And then, have you ever seen a fight that really came down to 3 moves? They threw jabs, they threw crosses, and they threw leg kicks. There weren't many high kicks, body kicks, no knees, no even big whopping overhands or hooks. Crosses and jabs and leg kicks.
Well, after the bell, you saw a knee bar, and then
a couple kicks too.
A couple kicks at the end. That was kind of fun, But and then also coming off the heavyweights. Let's talk about that real quick.
That was the most awkward fight I've ever seen. Junior Dos Santos is supposed to be this great boxer, as they keep saying,
Sure.
But I hate his hand placement, and he throws no jabs and no feints. He moves his hands a lot. He never puts them in a good defensive position, and he tried to cut off the ring. Overeem looked scared, and then all of a sudden came to life. I liked the John Jones kicks he threw out, and there's more power in his hands than we thought, because it looked like you broke Dos Santos' nose with that first left, I believe, that landed, put him to the ground. I think it was kind of an early stoppage, because Dos Santos is too tough for his own good, as we've seen against Velasquez and Miocic. It's hard to knock him out, but I'm not going to hate the stoppage.
No, I mean, fighter safety is key. My thoughts on the fight were JDS is kind of a shot fighter at this point, it looked like. And that's what Alistar fought, was a shot fighter. I still say he's not that great, in my opinion, of a heavyweight inside the UFC cage. And yeah, everybody say no, he won, whatever, but he fought a pretty beat up, banged up, I went to war JDS, who, if you touch him on his chin, and now it seems like he just goes down. I don't want to call for anybody's retirement, but JDS, after a year off, it's time. 45 minutes of Kane twice and Stipe Miocic, that war with Mark Hunt. I think he's done all that he can for the sport. He looks pretty beaten, and Overeem looks about half the size of the guy that stepped in that UFC octagon the first time against Brock Lesnar. And I love how he called for a title shot because he beat the number 2 guy in the world. Everyone wants to call for a title shot, but sure. Ben Rothwell wrecked you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I don't, you know, hey, it happens and stuff. But that's my thoughts on that fight, was whoever caught whoever was going to win. And we just saw the JDS, a shell of JDS, basically, fighting in there that night. So props to Alistar.
And talking about Overeem, we also get to step into your other favorite topic, free agency.
Yeah, is he done?
He's done. That was his last one. He now joins Aljamain Sterling and Benson Henderson on the Let's Wine and Dine Me tour.
And I love it. I love it. I love that these guys are doing that now. I absolutely think it's the best thing for them. Let's see what Bellator offers. Let's see what ONE FC offers. Let's see what is it, Ryzen now?
Ryzen Fighting Federation. Let's see what they're going to do.
They can dangle Fedor and say, hey, man, you want to fight him?
Did you see who Ryzen actually put in?
I know that, but I'm saying they could
dangle that. That would be impressive, but they had a chance supposedly to make that in Strikeforce, and they didn't.
You know how huge he is in Japan?
So huge that you're surprised that the UFC never put him on a card there?
Yeah.
He's huge. Mark Hunt, Bob Sapp, Alistair Overeem, Fedor, those are the names.
You know, Josh got to fight there, right? Josh Barnett?
Yeah, Josh Barnett, yeah. So exactly, Roy Nelson.
One, you know, and I think he's going to do the same thing. I think he's going to play it out also. He's watching. These older veterans that are older but not older in the sense of completely done, they're watching. They're seeing what's out there. They're seeing what's taking place, shaping. ONE FC will take up one of those guys in a heartbeat.
We'll see who throws out the money. As a biased fan, I'm hoping the UFC coughs up the cash that we know they have and that they keep them. If any of them, I'm expecting Overeem possibly, because he does have that worldly name to be gone. Because when I think they come down to it, they're going to realize Benson Henderson is too valuable for everything he's done to lose, and that Aljamain Sterling is too much of a budding star. You're going to look at Overeem and you're going to say he might be in the twilight. He might be the one that could walk away the most.
Yeah.
But who knows?
It's going to be an interesting time, and I like it. I like free agency. I think it's great for these guys. I think I always tell them, treat it like a business. You know, guys will come into the fight shop in New Mexico, different fighters, and they'll talk to me about stuff, and some of them are frustrated on things. And I tell them, look out for number one. Look out for the guy that you're looking at in the mirror. That's it. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters in this sport. I know people say, oh, there's my team, there's this, there's that. At the end of the day, you have to treat it all like a business. What about Dos Anjos and Cowboy? What was your thoughts on that fight?
They came out fast. They came out hard. And Donald Cerrone has a giant Achilles heel, and it's that beer-swallowing liver of his.
Man, every time, and I was sitting there thinking about it, every time he gets into a big fight, it's choke. Anytime there's any kind of co-main event or anything else that doesn't pertain to any kind of title, going back to his WEC days, this guy is a monster. But you get in there for title fights, and he shuts down for some reason. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he needs to get
he said he had a sports psychologist, and he said that was part of getting over the hump coming off of the lost Dos Anjos fight. And really what I saw was being susceptible to that body shot. Pettis put it on him, and now Dos Anjos, everyone wants to credit the body kick, and it was long before that. He hit him with a left hook to the body, and the knee followed it up, and it was the knee, I think, that really just shut him down.
Oh, yeah. And I think Cowboy was trying to recover, but it was just too little too late. And if you ever been hit hard to the body, let me tell you, you can shut down your whole body. Yeah, your brain's working perfectly fine, your face is working perfectly fine, but your body is shut down.
I do feel the fight was stopped somewhat early.
Do you?
And I do believe solely that is a direct result of the weekend before, with Luke Rockhold nearly murdering Chris Weidman, and Herb Dean took hearing that all week, and then he saw the same potential, and he just stopped Dos Anjos and Cerrone. I think Cerrone had a little more left in him, but with a black belt on top of you like that, I can't say he was really going to come back. But I've watched the fight a couple times. I did feel it was early, and I just had that thought this morning that this is a direct result of him getting a week's full of crap for not stopping.
Possibly.
Weidman.
You actually may be onto something, because fighter safety, and yes, the refs hear all this. Yes, they read about it. Yes, their family hears about it, just as the fighters hear about all this negative and people talking about it and whatnot. Where does Cowboy Cerrone go from here?
Cowboy Cerrone keeps fighting. He probably, just like we said, took a liver shot. He's not hurt. This dude will probably take a fight in like 2 months if he can. He's fighting at 55. I think that's the best thing for him. He jumps back in the mix, and there's still a ton of challengers no matter what anybody says. I mean, if Nurmagomedov ever comes back, heck, we're having a Pettis-Alvarez fight. If Alvarez loses, that's a rematch to have. Pettis, there's tons of things to do with Cowboy because he is marketable and he's in the deepest weight class. Does he ever get another title shot? I don't know.
If the title changes hands?
It's a good possibility. It's a good possibility. I know with McGregor, they want to get that trash talking in there, so that's another one that could come back up, but he's got a pretty big hole to climb out of, having been stopped with 2 of his last 3 losses and having them in high-profile fights. But it's Cerrone. He'll take as many fights as he can. And before we know it, he'll be back in that top 5 in like a 6-fight winning streak.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting time for Cowboy. I don't think, like you said, I don't think he's going to get a title shot. Yeah, I hear that he's willing to take some fights at 170. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're going to talk more about UFC on Fox, and then we're going to jump into the local scene with Mika. He's going to fill us in. We have a huge 2016 coming up. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
The Fight Shop New Mexico in the Montano Plaza Shopping Center, located off Coors and Montano.
And we're back. This is the DC Life. We were talking about UFC on Fox. We touched on the Nate Diaz fight. We touched on the heavyweight fight. We touched on the main event. I know we kind of got excited and we're going all over the place, but real quick, we want to touch on the rest of the card. Micah, what were your thoughts on the fights?
Well, you had on the prelim portion a heavyweight bout between debuters Francis Gano and Luis Henrique. Henrique was a Brazilian who had Muay Thai, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu background. He was trying to take it to the ground, and Gano is a very big man with very long arms, very big feet, and put a very big jab on Henrique's face with a huge knockout. A great debut there coming in. You also had to look at the tough the tough fights. These were formerly tough fights. Black Zillions and ATT continuing their rivalry. Vicente Lupe gets his hard-earned revenge, choking out Hyder Hassan. Hyder got hit. He was the striker coming in the fight. Got hit, got hurt, dove for a takedown, got Darius choked. And we ended up the prelims with Kamaru Usman ground and pounding out ATT's Leon Edwards for a unanimous decision. Usman, the tough winner from the Black Zillions with a great wrestling background. The prelims on Fox Sports 1 started off with Jim Allers trying to gouge out Cole Miller's eye. It was accidental, but he stabbed him pretty deep with his finger and pushed off. No contest there. Nick Lentz moved back up to 55 after nearly dying to make 45, he said. And Danny Castillo gassed in the first round. Nick Lentz almost lost the fight because of his love of his guillotine, putting himself on his back. But on the feet, outworked Castillo, who looked the worst he's looked in a while. Tamden McCrory, who could have had a Bellator title shot, decided to come back to the UFC and ends up tapping out Josh Saman in the third round with a triangle choke. McCrory showed good striking, good clinch game, and puts the man on his back. And it was a great transition to get the submission. That was big news.
And McCrory is interesting because it's free agency again at its best. He got offered with Bellator. It was an interesting story. A title shot for that organization. Turned it down. Came back to the UFC, now fighting on the prelims, saying that he even was vocal, saying that he's making more money on the prelims of a UFC than he would as a Bellator title challenger.
Exactly, so that was huge.
So it's interesting. It's interesting to see. It's working both ways. I know people always say that, oh, you're a UFC hater. No, I'm a fighter-first kind of person. I want the guys to get and girls to get the best opportunities there is. So I wanted to bring that up. That's very, very interesting. And he looked slick. Jiu-jitsu, chain jiu-jitsu at its best if you didn't see it. And they were both black belts.
Right. It was even more incredible what he did because of the caliber of competitor he is against. And it was even more incredible because McCrory was having less than success on top, let himself get swept to be able to put himself in position to get the submission. It was a beautiful job when he got that triangle locked in. And then you talk about making the most of your opportunities. Valentina Shevchenko. In a couple months, she was supposed to be challenging to become the first legacy women's bantamweight champion since Holly Holm. Injuries happen. She gets a call up, taking on number 5 Sarah Kaufman, number 5 ranked contender in the UFC rankings. And Shevchenko beat her up for the first 2 rounds in the clinch, on the ground. Coming in, Shevchenko's a kickboxer. Kaufman is a boxer, so what did they do? They clinched, they wrestled, they grappled. Shevchenko got the best of the first 2 rounds. Kaufman, with a big comeback in the third round, landed like 100 strikes from a crucifix position in the third round, but too little, too late. Shevchenko also, and this is a disgusting fact, I thought, is the first woman to debut in the UFC bantamweight division since Holly.
Yes.
How bad are they doing of bringing talent then into that division to shine a light on that? Oh, we haven't had a woman debut in this division for 10 months. That's not something to be proud of.
No, and that's why I think you're seeing the love triangle between Holly, Ronda, and then you'll see Misha sneak in there as well. And then everybody else is still trying to fight it out, figure it out, and try and move up. Who's going to move up? I expected, because everybody was like, oh, you know, she's a Muay Thai specialist, this, that, and the other. So in my mind, I'm looking at her as a potential matchup possibly down the road for Holly. I'm saying, hey, look, Sarah Kaufman, and no joke, former Strikeforce women's champion, knows how to fight, and it wasn't very impressive.
So for Shevchenko, does this give her, is she top 10 now in the division? Do you have to put her up there for beating the number 5 fighter in the division on 8 days' notice?
Yeah, but how is Sarah number 5? Coming off of losses, the way she's been losing lately.
Well, we don't get to vote for that stuff because I have Amanda Nunes and Kat Zingano and people above her.
But that's what I mean. Are they going on nonchalant and back in the day type of stuff to rank these fighters? And speaking of rankings are weird in the UFC.
They matter, but they don't matter.
They matter nowadays based on pay and et cetera and stuff like that, but it's just weird because how can fighter A, who's ranked in the top 15, knock out fighter B, who's ranked in the top 10, and fighter A moves into the top 12, while fighter B stays inside the top 10, but just moves back to maybe the 10th spot. It is totally weird to me how their rankings work.
How the rankings, how the votings, it's a whole big system.
Yeah.
I don't get that one. But also things I don't get is, Nate and Marquardt. Power is the last thing to go, people, when your career is at its, downhill. And CB Dalloway, you can't clear Knucklehead, and you can't coach Knucklehead. And he's a Knucklehead because he just, again, ran right into a right hand.
It was whoever landed. It's kind of the same thing as I was saying with the heavyweight fight. I love Nate Marquardt as a person, as a fighter. He's one of the first people to ever come on air with me at ESPN Radio. He came in studio, made it all and for those of you that don't know where ESPN Radio studios are, they're in Rio Rancho, way far out. He drove in, came in, sat in with me on a Saturday morning. Yeah, him and Quinn Mulhern. Mulhern was just the King of the Cage champion. Like, I was a nobody then, and Nate was one of those guys that was hot at that time. He just got to Jackson's. He was making noise. He was a former King of Pancrase. He was the it guy at that moment. He came in, and the reason why I say this is it's not hate against him. It's more of, when is it time to hang up the gloves?
A 10-year career and more than 50 fights. He's fought a lot, and that takes a toll on the body.
Yeah, and you could see it. You could see it. You saw it at 170. You see it at 185. He got clipped a couple times, and it was whoever was going to clip whoever, and it just so happened that the former Strikeforce, what was he, welterweight champion?
Welterweight champion.
Caught him, clipped him, and lived to fight another day, because I believe if he would have lost here, he would have been done.
It was a huge win. It was
done inside the UFC cage. Now, granted, Bellator would have probably gobbled him up, no problem.
WSOF somebody.
Sure, absolutely.
And then the prelims closed out with a kind of a featherweight fight. We say kind of because Charles Oliveira missed weight by like 4 pounds. And it was Miles Jury dropping down from lightweight. His debut, Jury's a top 10 ranked lightweight supposedly, and Oliveira a top 10 ranked featherweight, and you can't play with Oliveira on the ground. You can't put your head down. Jury got caught in the clinch and got caught in a guillotine and just got choked the life out of.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. It happens, and it did happen. Let's move from UFC on Fox, and let's move on to 2016 in New Mexico. I believe we're closed out for this year, correct?
Yeah, no more events left for 2015. We are done with 2015.
Let's move on to 2016 in terms of the local New Mexico scene. What's going on then?
Well, you're kicking us off, Sal, on January 10th. Tell us about it.
The Battle of the Blue Belts. We're going to have 2 super fights, which are consisting of purple and brown belts. This time around, 2 matches, and then we're going to have 2 8-man submission-only gi tournaments, and the winners get prizes, gift cards, etc. It's just something fun, something different. We see it across the country, East Coast, West Coast. It's huge, Midwest. You're seeing these tournaments stop doing points, and you're seeing more submission-only tournaments. So that's really what the focus is to get the guys ready and prepped for these type of tournaments, because not a lot of guys are used to that. They're more used to the points traditional system, and now we're getting away from that. We're going to get away from that. I want these guys as ready as possible to attack and for these big-time tournaments that are coming up with big-time money. So that's the purpose of the Battle of the Blue Belts.
Then almost 2 weeks later, just under January 23rd, we got it that Alamogordo is going to be having Steel Dragon, I believe, or Iron Dragon Promotions is their name, and they are putting on amateur fights, amateur boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. That'll be back out in Alamogordo. A couple months ago, we were out there for their first event. Then we got January 30th, the following weekend, Holmes Boxing, Buffalo Thunder Resort and Casino. I'm sure you're going to see the regulars out there. Antonio Toe Martinez, Brandon and Patrick Holmes. You never know who else will be on the card. They always pack the house there. Same venue 2 weekends later. February 13th will be there. Jackson's MMA series. You can go to cageminds.com. We got an article up on there that gives you the whole fight card, the great main event, flyweights, Nick Urso, Jordan Espinosa. Hopefully Legacy RFA have their eyes on this fight, because I think that's where the winner goes, is to try to claim one of those regional title belts. 6 days later, the following weekend, Hobbs, Hard Knocks Promotions. They just this past weekend had a boxing event out there in Hobbs, and it looks like they'll be back February 19th with their first MMA event. The next day, it's rumored that Mayhem will be back in Roswell, New Mexico. That's amateur MMA action. And there's rumors that there's going to be some boxing up in the Santa Fe area, possibly around the same time. We should have more for you on that coming soon.
And I tell you what, the fight card that sticks out to me, if it stays together, and again, people go check it out, cageminds.com, Jackson's MMA series, February 13th. If that fight card stays together, I know it's early in 2016, but that could be the fight card of the year.
We got people from Arizona, Texas, I believe, a lot of talent from New Mexico. It's a huge stat card, and really, out of all these cards, hate to rag on everybody, they're the only one that's put out what a fight, or at least what the main event is going to be to attract the fans, so it's some good business from the Jackson's MMA series there.
So it's Christmas time right now, and next week we're going to be giving out our little awards, cageminds.com, the DC Life Uncensored. We're going to name Fighter of the Year for both male and female, and local national as well. And then what else are we going to be doing?
We're going to get into who had the fight of the year. We're looking at top male and female fighters, as you said, from boxing, MMA, maybe even talk about some of the amateur stuff, and review really and look back to some big moments from what we've had regionally, locally, nationally. It's been a huge year for combat sports, for everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be exciting. We're going to touch on that. Who else is outside of the events that are happening here in New Mexico? The local fighters will be kicking off the new year. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about that as well.
February 27th. It looks like it's going to be, well, the card is spitting out to be from a promotion called SWC. They're going to be out in Honolulu, Hawaii, and the event is being promoted as USA versus Russia. We can confirm for you one fight, Andreas Quintana versus Martel Ivanov. Ivanov, back-to-back wins via submission, a tough Russian Sambo player. The Bullet, 9-1, 9 straight wins, 8 of them by knockout. The tough 22 competitor, the former AAA MMA champion, Andreas Quintana. Joining him on that card from New Mexico, but not confirmed yet, it looks like Donald Sanchez, Frank Lester, Damasio Page, and Conrad Padilla may all be in action on that card. So it's going to be New Mexico versus Russia, February 27th in Honolulu, Hawaii. That sounds like it could be huge.
And I'm perfectly okay with New Mexico representing the United States, since we're always so confused and people don't know. You know, I love to see the guys go out there with the New Mexico flags and represent the United States as well. And then we got Cody East going to be fighting.
All that boy does is collect belts.
Yeah.
King of the Cage champion, Legacy champion, and he has his eyes set on the Global Knockout heavyweight title. Well, Global Knockout has announced that March 26, GKO 6, 4-man, 1-night heavyweight tournament. Cody East in the first round is going to meet a bad man, Dave Huckabee, who he was originally supposed to fight at GKO 5. In the other semifinal, you're going to have Roy Broughton, who lost via first round submission to strikes to Cody East at GKO 5 against Junior Lugo, who's won 4 of his last 5, and I believe is coming off of an RFA split decision loss to Jan Jorgensen. So that's a good name. It's a field with a veteran, and it's a scary proposition, I think, trying to get 4 heavyweights to fight twice in one night. They're all going to be hurting after the first round.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's kind of weird because recently Cody fought for GKO, weighed in against Dave Huckabee, as you stated before we started this. Ended up fighting Roy.
Fought Roy Broughton instead. I don't know what happened that 24 hours. We've not been able to get a hold of Cody to get a story. We hope to do that for you guys, though.
Maybe we could reach out to Global Knockout MMA and see if we could get in contact with them, see what happened. I assume they all weighed in, and then something happened to both sides of the card. So this is my thought: is something happened between Dave Huckabee and JR, which separately, obviously, but something happened, so what they did is they just moved their opponents together.
They try to move them around, something. And also for GKO6, just so you guys know, it's at Jackson, Ranchera, California. If you can figure out where that is, it's a big event to go out to because they got this tournament. They're also promising a middleweight and flyweight title fight. So they have a stacked card for an up-and-coming promotion. And I believe Jonathan Hand, who's been training at the Jackson camp, professional boxer, he's taking his skills and getting back into the MMA cage for the second time. So he'll be on that card too.
It'll be interesting. If Cody wins here, I know we said it last time and there was rumors that, hey, UFC's already looking at him. If he wins his last fight with GKO, he's 11-1?
11-1 right now. He wins this title, that would be 13-1, 3 regional titles, and if the UFC doesn't sign him, someone's got to slap Scott Croker if he don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they don't like about this guy. I mean, he's knocking people out.
He's not done a 5,000 at Kimbo Slice with a YouTube following yet.
But he doesn't need that. I mean, he'll lay out Kimbo. He'll lay out Dada. He'll lay out any of the... I mean, you put him in there with Bobby Lashley, he'd smash Bobby Lashley. And I'm saying for Bellator. And it's a shame that these guys, that this guy in particular is not getting noticed.
And I don't know what more you could do collecting belts like this, 2-Access TV main events. He was out here during the Holly fights. They were live streaming Havoc when he got a first-round knockout. A win over a guy like Nick Rossborough to get the King of the Cage title. It's not like he's taking on tomato cans. He's been taking on any challenge that he can get, and I'm even more surprised to see that he's with Global Knockout, that Legacy just lets him walk away. What's Legacy doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. That's something that I guess his management team has to deal with. From what I heard, he signed with Ali and his group, so we'll see what happens. It's 2016 or 2015 coming to a close, 2016 about to start, and we're starting off the year combat sports-wise with a bang. I'm excited. That's it for this week's edition of
I think we have one more thing left.
What are we going to talk about now? You're interrupting me.
I'm interrupting you because we talked about Diaz, McGregor, and what's next. But what about RDA? What about RDA?
Oh, it's simple.
What's simple?
You saw his opponent fight the night before.
Or the week before.
I'm sorry, the week before.
Tony Ferguson?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not Tony Ferguson.
No, who?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay,
Tony Ferguson.
I'm right. I just need Sal to say that.
Yes,
I'm right.
Yes, Tony Ferguson. That's who's next. That's who's rightfully next in line for him. I know that's not a huge money fight, and probably it's going to be Conor. It's interesting because Conor does have enough say and push. I feel that he's bigger. They can honestly say he's bigger than the UFC.
Right now, there's 3 guys I got to feel sorry for. You got to feel sorry for Tony Ferguson, 7-fight win streak.
Yeah.
You got to feel sorry for Frankie Edgar, 5-fight win streak. And you got to feel sorry also for Max Holloway. We're overlapping him, 8-fight win streak. And we're pretty sure that McGregor Dos Anjos is what the cards are telling us is what the bald head wants.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's going to be. And the one out of all of those that I feel bad for is Frankie. Because I think Frankie has fought the more stiffer competition. And I think he's the most deserving of a title shot out of all of those guys. So it's interesting. It's going to be an interesting 2016 to play out. Next week, you can join us again. We're going to give out our awards. And this changes back. How exciting, the DC Life changes back to audio format. So always check us out at cageminds.com. We always shoot it live inside the Fight Shop New Mexico at 6200 Coors Boulevard Northwest in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm your host, Sal Mika. This is Mike Frankel. That's it for this week's edition. And wishing you all a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next week.
Have a happy holiday.